In this video, we're going to look at factoring using the area model. So factoring is essentially the reverse of what we did in our previous video on multiplication using the area model. So here we're trying to figure out what pieces need to go where to give us the original set of binomials that we multiplied to get the product. So we're essentially working backwards. So looking at a problem like number one here, we have given the product and a partial area model. So things have been filled in for us already. We're trying to figure out what the factors are. We're going to do the same thing in the first couple questions here. So the product here, we have 5x squared minus x minus 6. So we have some pieces given to us already. We have an x and a 1 on the left-hand side here in that first column. And we have a negative 6 on the upper right. Now, if you take a look at the pieces that we've got in place, we have this negative 6, which corresponds quite nicely, in fact, to this number right here. We have negative x, which is these two pieces together. 5 and negative 6 would give us a negative 1x. It's just combining the like terms. So really what I'm looking for is this box right here to be filled in with a 5x squared. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in yellow. And that's what we need to be in that box. So I'm going to write 5x squared in here. And essentially what I'm looking for is if I start with x, this guy right here, and I end with 5x squared, what has to go in this spot? The only way to get from an x to a 5x squared is to multiply by 5x. Now at this point, we're actually done. We have our factors, everything's in place. These right here, this first row and this first column are our factors. 5x minus 6 and x plus 1. We can change the order of those factors. We could have it as x plus 1 times 5x minus 6, but we can't mix and match. We can't say 5x plus 1 and x minus 6. That doesn't work. But as long as we have these in place, it doesn't matter the order that we write those factors. Again, they can flip-flop them. It's okay. It's multiplication. That's all it is. All right, so number two, we're giving you some different information. Same type of structure, though. That first term, x squared, is right there in that first spot in the box. We know that 5x and 4x together is going to give us 9x. So the last thing we're looking for is actually this number right here. And according to our original product, that number should be 20. Well, in order to make that 20, we want to know what numbers are going to multiply to give you 20. There's a lot of different options here. We can do 1 and 20. The best one that works would be 4 and 5 because of these boxes here. To get x to 4x, we need to have that as a 4. And from an x to a 5x, we need that to be a 5. And 4 times 5 will give us 20. So it's x plus 4 and x plus 5. Now let's get to somewhere we don't give you anything. We just give you the original product and say, hey, go ahead and solve it. So let's get to, you have to go forward a little bit. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is similar to what we did on the previous one. I'm just going to take the pieces that I know, and I'm going to put them in the correct spots. So I know this has to be x squared. I know that together, these have to add up to negative 6x. And this here has to be negative 27. So I'm going to fill in those numbers. I know them. X squared, negative 27. The only way to get x squared is to multiply x times x. And to get negative 27, I'm going to start with the factors that are closest together. Basically, I'm going to guess and then see if I'm right. So when I try negative 27, I'm going to start with a 9 and a 3. So I'm going to see if that works. A 9 and a 3. In this box, I should have a 9x, and here I should have a 3x. Now, you may be kind of yelling at the screen here, hey, 3 times 9 doesn't equal negative 27. It doesn't. I want to figure out the signs now. Now, the fact of the matter is that last term is negative, so that we have a negative 27 there. So one of these two has to be negative. My end result has to give us a negative 6. Well, with a 3 and a 9, I can get that if I make the 9 negative, which would make that negative as well. So that's my right combination because negative 9x and 3x is negative 6x. So I'm going to have x minus 9 and x plus 3. And again, I can switch the order of them. It doesn't change the meaning. And on a question like Model B, it's the same basic idea, except we have an interesting problem here in that we have that 3 out in front. That's really not going to change our process, though. We still want to put that first number in that first box. We know that these two boxes together have to add up to negative 11x. And I know that my last box is going to be negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. I've got 3x squared. I've got negative 4. To get 3x squared, I have to multiply two things together. Well, I'm thinking 3x and x would be our best combination to use. Now to get negative 4, I've got some options here. And one option is I can use 2 and 2. And I probably would try those first because those factors end up being very, very close together. In fact, the same number. But if I were to plug a 2 into here and a 2 into here, I would never get to negative 11. So instead, I want to try something different. I want to try 4 and 1. So I'm going to put 4 here and 1 here. Now, if I put it in the wrong spot, I can flip-flop them later and try a different combination. So when we're doing the area model, you're not going to get it right the first time every single time. If you do, congratulations, but you're in the vast majority or minority of students. Most will have a couple attempts, at least the first couple times around, before we start to master factoring. Now, using that in, I know that I've got a negative 4, so one of these numbers has to be negative, and I want it to add up to negative 11. So I'm going to plug this in first. I've got 12x and x, and that's a 1x. So to make this a negative 11, I have to make this a negative 12, which means that this has to be a negative 4. So then my factors would be x minus 4 and 3x plus 1. Again, our factors closest together is usually what we're going to try first, but sometimes it doesn't work, and we've got to adjust. So on number 2, or yeah, the number 2 down here, the 10x squared plus 33x plus 27. I want to show you this one because it's kind of an intimidating question. We've got a 10 in front. Oh, goodness. And we got a 27 at the end. We're trying to get a 33 in the middle. No different for our process, though. We're going to start with that first number. That's got to be our 10x squared. We want these two boxes to add up to 33x, and we want our last box to give us a 27. So I'm going to try 5x and 2x give me 10x squared. And for 27, I'm going to try a 9 and a 3 because those are my factors that are closest together. So I'm going to put a 9, no, I'm going to put the 9 here and the 3 here. So this is 6x and 45x, and this would be 27. And this doesn't work because a 9 or 45 and 6 is not going to add up to 33. It's going to add up to 51. But all hope isn't lost. I can erase these guys right here. If I want to, it probably would be a better idea. Actually, let's do this. Draw another area model. So using the same basic idea. Whoa, something happened there. Sorry about that. We're going to set up our area model. I'm still going to try the 5 and 2 because I think that's the right combination. It just feels right. And instead of putting the 3 up here and the 9 here, I'm going to switch it. I'm going to put the 3 here and the 9 here. So that's going to give me an 18x and a 15x. And together, yep, they do equal 33x. So this number is accounted for correctly. This number is accounted for correctly. And then these two get together give me this. I think we're good to go. So then our factors would be 5x plus 3, I'm sorry, plus 9 and 2x plus 3. Again, if you're not right the first time, it's not a reason to give up. We just need to try something different. Move some things around and see if that works for your adjustment. And there's one more I wanted to show you. I think I need to get to it on a different page. And I'm not finding it for some reason. I remember which one it is. I'll go ahead and do it. So it was x squared minus 81. Now this one looks different in the fact that we don't have that middle term, but our process is no different. Instead of worrying about that middle term, I'm going to actually rewrite it so that it looks like this: x squared plus 0x minus 81. So notice we have a 0x in this case because it's not there. What that tells me then is that my middle terms are going to cancel out. So if I set this up, Oops, that's what I'm looking for. That's got to be x squared. Together, those give me a 0. And my last number has to be that negative 81. So put the pieces in place. X squared, negative 81. So I know this has to be x and x. And again, I'm dealing with an 81, so I think probably the best factor combination would be a 9 and a 9. And I want my middle term to be 0, so I'm going to make one of these 9s a negative. Doesn't really matter which one because they're the same number. And it works. So then my factors would be x minus 9 and x plus 9. So again, that's how we're going to factor trinomials. It's a lot of kind of looking where the pieces fit and plugging them in and making sure that everything's in the correct spot. If everything checks out, then you found the correct factor combinations.